Hi, thank you for joining us and welcome to this installment of David W. Klossing's Clarifying Tax Situations.
What are the warning signs that a criminal referral has been made out of an IRS civil audit? Boy, this is a scary subject. If you're sitting there in a civil audit and any of the following occur, you should start worrying about whether you're dealing with a civil audit anymore or whether the government's about to open a criminal investigation against you. That's the subject of this video. When is a criminal referral likely to come out of a civil audit? A criminal referral is likely to come out of a civil audit whenever there are firm indications of fraud that come to exist in the mind of the civil auditor. He's looking at your tax situation and it just doesn't make sense that these are accidents that just happen. It can be a lot of things that tip him off. If you're unwise enough to sit down with an auditor and your body language tells him constantly that you're lying and your words and your actions aren't lining up, you're telling a story that doesn't test out, the evidence doesn't support what you're saying. If the auditor finds firm indications of fraud, they're likely to start working with a technical fraud advisor whose sole job is to work up the case for potential handoff to the Criminal Investigation Division. I said in an earlier version, there's 2 of those in California that I know of. They're rare, but it happens. The things that are really going to get an auditor excited is when they're looking at badges of fraud. Badges of fraud are situations that jump out as the IRS as, hey, this wasn't caused by negligence or an accident. It was caused by purposely misstating information, by taking criminal actions with an intent to deceive to knock down your tax liability. Well, what does it? Omissions of income. I'm going to jump down to that note at the bottom of the page. Here's the scary part with omissions of income. All it takes is a $10,000 understatement of income in a personal tax return to result in the civil auditor have a conversation with a technical fraud advisor about whether to refer the case for criminal prosecution. There is no such dollar amount with deductions that are claimed that aren't kosher, okay? But 10 grand of underreported income and all of a sudden you get an auditor, IRS playbook says you go talk to a TFA when you see this, $10,000 underreported income. A standard audit approach that they use in every audit to find this, they will grab all of your business bank statements, add up all the deposits, compare the total deposits per your bank statements, also from your credit card deposits, from your point of sale transaction, any record of incoming income. They're going to compare it against the income reported on the return. 1099Ks are being used for this. I've seen eBay transaction lists kicking out. All of a sudden they've got all these reported sales on eBay and they look to see if those were reported on your return. Any 1099s from third parties indicating that there may have been a sale to them that wasn't reported. They have lots of different ways of looking for unreported income, but if they find firm indications of unreported income, omissions of income, it gets scary in a hurry. All right, if you are flat out unable to explain large discrepancies on a return, Mr. Smith, why is it that we can see $3 million of income running through your business accounts, but you only reported $1.9 million of income on your tax return? It's a very dangerous question. Or, Mr. Smith, how is it that we're able to check your books and your books tie out perfectly and they only show $1.7 million of total deductions, but yet I see $3.8 million of deductions on your tax return? How did that happen? Those are dangerous issues. Substantial overstatements will do it. Overstated deductions. If the government has to come across and actually finds 2 sets of books, one set of books that you use for your tax return that understates income, one set of books that supports a loan that you got from a bank and it shows a lot more income, those are very dangerous situations. Often I've seen 2 sets of books be broken out when someone's trying to sell their business and they go to the potential buyer under a confidentiality agreement and they say, buyer, here's my tax returns for the last 5 years, don't value my business based on those. Frankly, I've been cheating on my taxes for years. Don't look at that set of books and those returns. Look at this set of books, and then this is the set of books that actually accurately represents the income from my business. That potential buyer can turn you in for tax fraud, by the way, violate the confidentiality agreement, and get a 25% reward of any blood the government squeezes out of you. Very, very dangerous to go there, all right? What else? Fictitious items, etc. If they're looking at fraud dead on the face of the return, fictitious items would be a bunch of deductions listed that you've got absolutely no support for, and the cash flow doesn't support it. That's very dangerous. So if you had a bunch of these situations go on in your audit and you're wondering whether a criminal referral has been made, here's the warning signs to look for. Frankly, my job is to get in there and make sure that this doesn't go criminal. If you're already looking at whether a criminal referral has been made, I'm not as well suited to help you. It's more damage control at that point than potentially avoiding the criminal situation in the first place. Well, anyways, here's some warning signs that all of a sudden the audit may be out of the civil auditor's hands and moved in the criminal investigation division. The civil audit will be suspended when the civil auditor has firm indications of fraud. In other words, they're just going to stop auditing. At that point, they're going to hand it off to the criminal investigation division. So if you can tell they weren't anywhere near done with the audit, you could tell they weren't happy with the last set of documents that were submitted. You could tell that by the type of questions they were asking, your sixth sense is telling you they discovered fraud and they all of a sudden stopped the audit dead in its process. That's a very, very good sign it's moved on. And this can happen with your knowledge, but most of the time it happens without your knowledge and without the representative's knowledge. A lot of times they'll just punt. They won't answer questions. They won't answer the phone. They'll be unreachable. That leads to the revenue agent becomes unexplainably unreachable. You'll hear all sorts of excuses. They've gone out for training, they went out on maternity leave. It can be really strange as to whether they're actually unavailable or just that a referral's been made. If the revenue agent is focusing heavily on the intent of the taxpayer in taking positions on the return, asking what you were thinking when you did X, why did you do Y? The why question. Very, very dangerous. Now all of a sudden they're trying to get direct evidence on tax fraud right out of the taxpayer's mouth. That's a dead clue that this thing's about to go criminal. If they start doing a net worth analysis and subpoenaed bank records, you got a problem. Let me explain what a net worth analysis is. If over the past 5 years you showed $80,000 of income a year, and all of a sudden they realize that you're living a block from the beach, you've got an $8 million mansion, you're driving a Maserati, you got 5 kids in private school, you got a butler, all of a sudden they're going to go, their net worth and their reported income aren't lining up. This doesn't make sense. That's very dangerous. Okay. Matter of fact, the net worth method is quite often presented at a criminal trial to show criminal intent for income tax evasion. Okay, so the revenue agent starts gathering up an excessive amount of documentation and makes excessive copies. If all of a sudden the auditor disappears into your copy room, or worse yet, hires a company to roll out a copy machine and brings out 3 employees from the IRS to start making a copy of every document supporting your business, they're building a criminal investigation against you, and you need to move fast, all right? How about this? If the revenue agent makes undisclosed contact with third parties. In a civil audit, they're supposed to tell you when they're reaching out to third parties. They don't have to, but courtesy says they'll tell you. They're reaching out to your bank and they're requesting documents. They're going to the guy who sold you the business and requesting a copy of the contract from him. They're going out to your vendors and they're asking, what did you actually sell this guy in the way of inventory over the last 5 years? Because I see reported sales of 100,000. How is it when they have reported sales of 100,000 of goods when you've sold them $5 million worth of inventory? That indicates that a bunch of it was sold for cash and not reported on the return. You receive a summons for records or for an appearance. If the government actually summons records, they're using the power of a court to make you produce something. If they actually summons you to appear, in other words, they don't ask you to show up and submit to an interview, they summons you via legal procedure, you should start to worry at that point. And if you show up for that summons and there's 2 revenue agents at the table, there's someone from district counsel and there's a court reporter writing down everything that's said, if the hair on the back of your neck isn't standing up at that point, you're just not getting the situation. Okay, there's 3 more typical clues. More than 1 revenue agent, the agent and their manager, or worse yet, 2 revenue agents, an attorney at chief counsel's office, and court reporter attend a client interview. That's a bad sign. Okay, I've had that happen a couple times. They're creating an actual record. Every word that comes out of the client's mouth, they're doing that for a reason. If the auditor breaks out a tape recorder and puts it on the table, if the auditor sets up a video camera and starts videoing the interview of the client, these are all things that should really bother you. Okay, so I kind of touched on this earlier. The typical eggshell audit is said to reverse. Remember we talked about an eggshell audit where there's an underlying criminal issue in an audit. that the client or his representative may know about it, the IRS doesn't know about it. It reverses from an eggshell audit into a reverse eggshell audit. In other words, a referral's been made. When all of a sudden the auditor cancels the next appointment and all of a sudden you can't reach them. They won't return your phone calls. You should start to suspect a referral to CI has been made at that point. Now, this isn't to say the IRS won't drag out an audit for years and they'll get super busy, especially with the budget cuts that are going on right now. The IRS has lost 15,000 personnel over the last 5 years nationwide. There's been a hiring freeze on. It's getting harder and harder for them to be efficient in an audit situation. So I'm not saying necessarily panic if they're too busy to get to you, but you look at the preceding events that led to the disappearance of the auditor, and it should make sense to you. Well, they punted because they found criminal actions had taken place, and they're out, criminal investigation division's in, and there's a big pause while CI gets up to speed on the case. It could be 2 years before CI comes knocking on your door. Okay, here's the most obvious example that you're in a criminal investigation. An officer of the IRS wearing a gun and a badge approaches you. Well, first of all, the only agents of the IRS that wear guns and badges, well, there's 2 of them. There's agents out of TIGTA. They're not usually involved with investigating clients for income tax evasion. They're usually involved with going after preparers that hold themselves out as CPAs when they're not. They go after people that are committing identity theft and stealing people's refunds. They monitor the IRS personnel themselves to make sure the IRS agents aren't extorting income out of the people they're auditing. They wear guns and badges, but it's a different gig. You're looking for somebody with a badge that says Criminal Investigation Division on it, and they have a gun on the side. Usually they'll show up in teams of 2. They'll be the agent from the Criminal Investigation Division. There'll be a revenue agent assigned to them with a pad of paper that's writing down everything that's said. If somebody from the IRS with a gun and a badge hands you 3 years worth of tax returns and starts asking you questions about them, and someone's writing down what you say, you got a problem. Okay, you got a big problem, you need to call me. First of all, you need to understand that you have the right to terminate that impromptu investigation, and they will show up out of the blue at 7 o'clock on a Friday morning. They'll know your habits, they'll know when you're leaving for work, they'll try and catch you off guard, and they'll try and get you to try and explain your way out of the problem. What they're looking for is to get you lying on the record to be able to show that there was criminal intent for what you did on that tax return. What you need to tell them is, I demand to have an attorney present before I answer your questions. I'm terminating this conversation right now until I can have my attorney present. That's the only safe thing to say. They're going to read you Miranda warnings. It's going to say something along the lines of they're conducting a criminal investigation. Anything you say can be used in a prosecution for tax crime. Choose your right to remain silent. Even if they arrest you, they have the power to arrest you. If they pull you into a room and they won't let you leave, you remain silent for as long as it takes until counsel is present, because nothing you say is going to help you. Okay? Thank you so much for watching this video. Scary stuff. I'm always here to take questions on these issues.
Thank you so much again for your time and interest in how we may be able to help you. Please don't hesitate to call if something is worrying you. We would be very happy to help. Just call or email for a reduced rate consultation.